going on, guys? It's Alex Miner here with another episode of AFMMA Analysis. I know I've been absent for a little while, been dealing with a lot of stuff. Couldn't even find my camera for a while, but back on track, back doing what I love to do, and that's just giving this news to y'all. So of course, everybody knows, every UFC fan knows that it is fight weekend, UFC 231. We have Max Holloway fighting Brian Ortega. It is the biggest fight in the featherweight division since Aldo versus McGregor. Two guys who just have super long win streaks. I know Max Holloway's win streak is 12. I'm pretty sure it's the longest, if not one of the longest active win streaks in the UFC. Brian Ortega, I believe his win streak is around 8 or so, something like that. But both just young guys and just took their divisions by storm, and it's going to be a great fight tomorrow. Before that, just want to get into some of the other fights. This fight is actually really stacked. It is definitely, they talked about a little about it in the media about this card being more of kind of a hardcore's card, and it is in some ways, seeing as Holloway and Ortega, even though they are like two of the most exciting and high-level fighters in the UFC, the fans just don't know them as well yet. I mean, Brian Ortega's been rising up and he's had some great finishes over some guys, but this probably hasn't broken that barrier to get mainstream, and Max Holloway really hasn't either, just because they kind of kept him as a contender for so long. I mean, he was one of those guys who had like 10 wins over almost every top contender in the division before he finally got his title shot. And so as a champion, it's going to take him a little bit to establish that high level of popularity, especially seeing as he's mainly a man of very few words. His favorite phrase is "it is what it is," and things of that nature. He's not really much of a talker. He's just one of those guys that goes into the octagon and just shows what it is with his hands. But like I said, very stacked card. Fans should definitely be excited about it. It's definitely not just skill heavy at the top. From the bottom up, we have Devin Clark and against Alexander Rakic. Not very sure who those dudes are. There's Diego Ferreira versus Kai Nelson. Once again, a couple of guys that aren't as well known by myself either. We have Chad LaPriest versus Diego Lima. Diego Lima, he is Ultimate Fighter vet. He's been on there twice. He was just on the Redemption series. Had some good wins, but still didn't make the finals. He's the brother of Douglas Lima over in Bellator, one of the most ferocious fighters I've ever seen. I wish Douglas Lima was in the UFC because he would do very well there in the 170 division. It would be very interesting to see where he would stand in amongst all just the row of killers that are at 170. But beside the point. Then there's Bracatona versus Matthew Lopez. Not quite sure who Matthew Lopez is, but Bracatona was the winner of the last series of the Ultimate Fighter. Not the one that they just had the finale for last week, but the one before that. And there's Kathleen Chookagian versus Jessica Ai. Jessica Ai is very well known in her division. I believe they're fighting at 125. Very well known for her striking. Pretty exciting female fighter. Then we have Eric Anders versus Elias Theodorou. Eric Anders just came off of the fight, I believe, against Tiago Santos, where it was just like a war back and forth until he finally just collapsed after, I believe, the third or fourth round. But a lot of power. He's a former football player for, I believe, in college. I'm not sure which one it was, but he's a great athlete with a lot of power. Elias Theodorou, he's very crafty as well. I haven't seen him fight for a while, so this will be a good reminder of who Elias Theodorou is for the fans. Olivier Aubin-Mercier versus Gilbert Burns, both very high-level grappling artists. So that should be a good one for the people that enjoy the jiu-jitsu game. Then there's Claudia Gadelha versus Nina Ansaroff in the strawweight division. Claudia Gadelha has been at the top of the strawweight division for a while. She was pretty much Joanna's biggest rival for a second. They had a very close fight in their first one, and then in the second one it was pretty close as well, but I think Joanna pushed forward a little bit more in that second one. But she is a very high-level jiu-jitsu practitioner, very strong grappler, and she's a very good striker as well. She's very technical on both ends. Her muscular frame kind of leads her to, she kind of just later into the fight, she tends to gas when it comes to a fight with a lot of striking. So she's mainly going to be grappling against Nina Ansaroff, who is mainly a striker. So between those two, it'll just, for Claudia, it will take her just putting all her skills together, using a lot of grappling, tiring out Nina Ansaroff, possibly submitting her on the floor, or just tying her out enough to get a good knockout on the feet, if she can. For Nina Ansaroff, obviously she wants to keep Claudia Gadelha off of her. Nina Ansaroff is the fiance of Amanda Nunes, so you know she is training with a very high level martial artist and champion, and Amanda Nunes has very good ground game as well, although we don't see it very much. So whether or not she's had the looks that Claudia Gadelha is going to give her, we don't know, but we will see how she deals with that challenge. Then another fight we have is Kyle Bochniak taking on Hakeem Dawodu. Kyle Bochniak is the very scrappy boxing stylist who took on Zabit Magomedsharipov not too long ago. And they had a very gritty, very tough fight between one another. Zabit took the fight, however, Kyle Bochniak never gave up. He was, at the end of the fight, he was sitting there and letting Zabit just tag him on the chin and sticking his tongue out at him and coming back hard. He's definitely a guy who's still young in the game, young enough to improve a lot, but he also has a lot of heart, and he has a lot of ferocity, and he has a very considerable amount of skill as well with those hands. So it'll be very interesting to see him back in there. And then there's Hakeem Dawodu. He is he's well known for his kickboxing. His first fight in the UFC, he fell short. I believe he won his last one by knockout. Might be mistaken. However, this fight should definitely be a striker's delight. You're very likely to see a knockout in this one because both of these guys kind of just go balls to the wall. They love getting knockouts, so this will be a good one for those fans. The next fight we have is Jimmy Manuwa versus Thiago Santos at 205. These guys were scheduled to fight before. It was actually originally Jimmy Manuwa who was going to be taking on Glover Teixeira, and then Glover Teixeira had to drop out, so Thiago Santos came up from 185 to step in, and then Jimmy Manuwa ended up dropping out, so then Eric Anders stepped up. They fought, had a very, very gritty, tough fight. Just a barn burner, big fight for the fans, as I talked about earlier. But it was the big, powerful combinations of punches and kicks from Thiago Santos that eventually earned him the win in the, I believe, third or fourth round, in between those rounds. But yeah, after that fight, Thiago Santos had said that he still wanted to fight Jimmy Manuwa, who was long known as just a bruiser in the 205 division. He has very hard hands, very powerful. However, he's been pretty inconsistent as of late. He actually has had a pretty long losing streak. He did beat guys like say Jan Blachowicz, and he beat Corey Anderson. He had a good knockout over Open St. Preux a couple of years ago. But after that, it's mostly been downhill. He did beat Corey Anderson last year. However, before that, he had a big knockout loss to Volkan Ozdemir. and since then he's had another loss to Jan Blachowicz this year. So this will be a fight for him to try to get back on track. It's not going to be easy though, even though Thiago Santos is coming up from 185. Thiago Santos is a very big 185er. He could definitely he could have a lot of success at 205 if he wanted to. He carries a lot of power. Very quick too, just snapping into everything that he does. He's just a very explosive guy. Jimmy Manuwa is too, like I said, very heavy hands. But they haven't been, I guess, I don't know if it's his confidence has just not been there, but he's not been finding the same success. So, like I said, this will be a fight for Jimmy Manuwa to try to get back on track, fight a dangerous fighter, and I see this mainly being a stand-up fight, so it'll be very dangerous for both parties involved, considering all the power that's going to be thrown around. So, very exciting fight. Yeah. Although I'm kind of leaning toward Thiago, even though he is the 185er. Jimmy Manuwa's chin has grown to be a bit questionable in his past few fights, so we'll see how the fight goes for him. In the fight before the co-main event, we have Alex Oliveira versus Gunnar Nelson. Haven't seen Gunnar Nelson since last year when he lost against Santiago Ponzinibbio. As you know, since then, Ponzinibbio's been on a roll. He's possibly pushing on a title shot. And one more fight, he's probably knocking on that door since he whooped Neil Magny for, I believe it was 2 or 3 rounds, but just kept him up against the fence the whole fight, just tagging him the entire time, just smacking him with leg kicks and just busting his face up with big 1-2s and just really powerful, crisp boxing that he's known for. His fight with Gunnar Nelson, it was a little controversial because Gunnar Nelson claimed that he had got poked in the eye and that's what had messed him up for the rest of the fight. And in the replay we see that he did poke him in the eye. I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but several fighters have claimed that he's done that. So I don't know. He's managed to get by doing what he does, and he is very skilled nonetheless. But yeah, seeing Gunnar Nelson back, he's very skilled. He's a karate style type of fighter. Very powerful for as small as he is for the 170 division. He's one of the guys who is interested in that 165 division, as he should be, because like I said, he is very small for the division. He in the weigh-in, we saw Alex Oliveira towers over him and is much wider as well. So we'll see how he manages that, but he has been fighting much bigger guys his entire career. But like I said, very powerful with his hands, and very, very slick and skillful with his jiu-jitsu. He just submitted Alex Joban last year. He's just, you get on the ground with him, you're most likely going to get submitted. The only guy who's beat him in that game is Damian Maia. Next to Damian Maia is a great as far as the jiu-jitsu game goes in general. Alex Oliveira, fan favorite, I believe. He's one of my favorites, although he hasn't really been given the top guys yet. Gunnar Nelson is up there, but yeah, he's exciting every single time that he steps into the octagon. Just very, very aggressive, at your head, Muay Thai, powerful striker, on top of you the entire time. And his jiu-jitsu is very good as well. His wrestling is very good. Just all around very good fighter. May kind of stray away from the basics from time to time, just because he just loves getting finishes so much, and he just has a hell of a killer instinct. Forgetting who he fought last. Let me see. Okay, so his last fight he had that big knockout over Carlo Pedersoli. I actually remember that fight. I believe it was a head kick that dropped Pedersoli, and he just dropped to the ground and KO'd him in the first round. It was 39 seconds into the first round with hammer fists. Before that, he submitted Carlos Condit, who is a veteran in the game and who was a title contender at one point in time against GSP. Before that, he got a KO over Yancy Medeiros. Before that, he got a KO over Ryan the Flair. Before that, he got a submission over Tim Means. He's taken out a lot of very high-level fighters in the 170 division, which is very stacked. All of these names that I'm listing are very highly skilled guys who may not even be in the top 15 just because 170 is so freaking stacked. The most stacked division right now. Before I said it was 55, but since 55 is kind of leveled out, some of the guys who kind of neck and neck, you didn't know who would win. Some of that is kind of gotten sorted out since then. 170, very, very stacked division. But yeah, this will be a very interesting one. Gunnar Nelson is very measured in his approach, whereas Alex Oliveira pushes the pace and is right in your face from the get-go. And I think that's maybe one of the things that kind of took Gunnar Nelson by surprise the last time. However, he is a karate style type of fighter, so they are well known for being able to keep that distance and get in when they want to. So yeah, it'll be a clash of styles. Like I said, both are very good strikers. Both are very good on the ground. I'd say Gunnar Nelson is probably more dangerous on the ground, but you never know. Like I said, Oliveira also is the bigger guy too, which does give you an advantage in grappling. I should know. Grapple around with bigger dudes all the time, and even if you are more skilled, they still might whoop your ass. So that'll be a very interesting fight. Then, of course, we have Valentina Shevchenko taking on Joanna Jędrzejczyk in the co-main event. This is probably the most high-level fight we have seen thus far in women's MMA. After this, it will be Cyborg taking on Amanda Nunes, but this is essentially kind of a champions versus champion. Valentina has not been a champion in the UFC. She did challenge Amanda Nunes before she dropped down to 125 for the title, and it was a very close fight. Even though Valentina was very undersized, Valentina put on a clinic against Holly Holm at 135, being much more undersized. Whoops the hell out of Holly Holm, and just very, very slick striker. She is a multiple-time Muay Thai champion. She has 3 wins over Joanna Jędrzejczyk in Muay Thai. So that will play a factor. Joanna says that it won't because it's a different sport, but they're both Muay Thai centered fighters. They like to keep it on the feet, so it's more than likely going to be another Muay Thai kickboxing bout when they get into the ring. Joanna, known for her volume in those hands, just very quick, slick Muay Thai fighter as well, but Valentina is just, she's going to have the power advantage, I believe. She's a little bit bigger than Joanna, who's coming up from 115. However, they both used to compete in Muay Thai at 125, so it should be a good, it should be a good weight class for Joanna as well. Joanna kills herself to get down to that weight, and you know that's going to take away from her performances. So we'll finally get to see a completely healthy Joanna in the ring, or in the octagon. So that could definitely make a difference in this fight. Joanna definitely has a lot to prove as well after losing to Rose Namajunas twice. She did beat Tisha Torres recently, but Lord knows she wants to get back to that gold. This is a big, very big opportunity for her. She's a multiple-time champion in the UFC, and like I said, Valentina is just a killer. Valentina is not only one of the, if not the best striker in women's MMA in the UFC. Aside from people like Cyborg and Amanda Nunes, she's very sick on the ground. She has some very high level submissions over people like Juliana Pena, who is mainly a grappler. She had another, I believe in her last fight, she had a very good rear naked choke as well. I may be mistaken though, but in the ground game, I definitely believe Valentina has the edge. Joanna usually just avoids the ground. Anytime it gets to the ground, she gets back up. She's very good at getting back up. Hard to keep her down. It's hard to get her down in the first place, though. So if she gets knocked down, I can see Valentina jumping on her and grabbing up submission and taking the fight. But on the feet, I believe Valentina is going to take this fight. Valentina had a lot of success down at 115 because mainly she was just a much better striker than the people she fought, and they couldn't keep her down if they could get her down at all. She had issues with people with more power like Rose Namajunas, who had some very good striking. And seeing as Valentina Shevchenko is most likely going to be much more skilled in striking than Rose Namajunas is, I'm almost certain that she is. Depending on the performances we've seen from her, this is probably going to be a replay of their last 3 fights with each other in Muay Thai. So, leaning towards Shevchenko, but it will be a very high level striking fight. It'll be delightful to see for fans, and if you don't think that women can throw down, then you best watch this fight. And then finally, of course, we have Max Holloway taking on Brian Ortega for the 145 title. This fight was scheduled before. It was right after Holloway tried to step in and fight Khabib in a fight where I think it was when Tony Ferguson had to drop out, and then they went through several candidates for the fight, and finally it ended up being the guy from New York, from Matt Serra's camp. I'm forgetting his name. He's fighting on the next card coming up, but I always forget his name because he's not as active. But aside from the point, Max Holloway's had some health issues in the fight leading up against Ortega last time. He got called out on Fox when he was talking to Michael Bisping, talking about he looked tired and just like he looked sleepy, and he was slurring his words, and just didn't look in good shape. There's some speculation whether it might have been from concussion. It was ruled out. There's speculation that it might have been that he did those 2 big weight cuts back to back. He did fail in the weight cut to try to take on the Khabib fight because he was at 185 and trying to cut down in a very short period of time. So that may have likely been a factor. It could have been both. Who knows if he had a concussion or not? I mean, fighters more than likely get concussions all the time. My mom's a doctor, and she said if you are dazed, then you probably have a concussion. You don't have to get knocked out to get a concussion. So, yeah. But this time he made it. Forgot to mention before, every single fighter has made weight for this fight, including Max Holloway. He came in at like 144 and a half. So he's looking good, looking in good shape. When they stepped up into each other's spaces, Max Holloway is definitely the bigger man. He's probably about 3 inches taller at least, which I didn't know. I thought they were about the same height. They're both very lengthy. But also Max Holloway is definitely the stronger looking guy as well. So could play a factor. But Brian Ortega, very, very dangerous fighter. He is, I don't know, he's, like I said, he's on a several fight win streak. He knocked out Frankie Edgar, the first guy to do that with vicious uppercuts. People mainly knew him as a submission guy because he oftentimes will just latch on to somebody's neck and like grab up a guillotine or get himself a slick triangle. He's just very dangerous off his back, but if you lean over too much when you're out standing, he might just grab your neck and hop up and submit you like he did Cub Swanson. This if he gets a hold of a limb, he's probably going to put you out. So Max Holloway will have to be very careful. However, Max Holloway is very well rounded. He's dealt with all different types of fighters as he's came up through the ranks. So I'm sure it won't be anything too new for him, but he will definitely have to be careful. He is a high-level jiu-jitsu practitioner himself, has some there's a guillotine and some other submissions on his resume as well, but he definitely won't be able to stack up with Brian Ortega more than likely when it comes to the ground exchange. On the feet, like I said, Brian Ortega his boxing is very, very slick. He's powerful, very fast hands. He's no slouch on the feet. Max Holloway is very well known for his boxing. He's more of a volume striker. Very good with his hands. He has some, I believe it was two knockout wins over Aldo. Like I said, he's more of a volume guy than a one-punch knockout artist. Ortega's knockout against Frankie Edgar makes it seem like he might have a bit more power, but you never know. He did hit Frankie Edgar with a lot of uppercuts before he finally put him out. But he did put him out. He kind of lifted him off the floor with that punch. It was beautiful. But on the feet, it'll be interesting. Like I said, Max Holloway is one of those guys that gets stronger as the longer it goes into the fight because he has such great cardio and such great tenacity. Brian Ortega, in several of his fights, it kind of looked like he might have been losing at first, but then later it gets into the fight, a guy slips up, might shoot a takedown on him, or just give him openings in the striking. So this fight will definitely be a toss-up. One of those fights that I can't really predict who's going to be the winner. Both guys are so very freaking dangerous. It is impossible to call. But like I said, the margin of error is a little bit smaller for Max Holloway because, like I said, if he leans his head in too far on the feet or happens to fall to the ground, get on top, even if he gets on top of Brian Ortega, he is at more risk than Brian Ortega is. So for Max Holloway, he's going to want to avoid that grappling exchange at all costs, keep it on his feet, and just outmaneuver Brian Ortega in the striking exchange. He is the longer guy, so he'll have that reach advantage. And he has some very good kickboxing as well. He's more known for his boxing, but he can take out those legs and just slow Brian Ortega down and keep him away from him. But yeah, the main thing with him is keeping that distance. And Brian Ortega, he's going to want to come in and stay low, get those hands off, and be back Ortega up against the fence, and just latch on to him and take that victory, or possibly get a knockout. However, Holloway is not the type of guy that just gets knocked out. Although he's very skillful, he's can take a punch. He'll even take a punch to give you a punch at times. He did that in his fight against the Bully. So yeah, very interesting fight. Two very highly skilled, tenacious warriors in the octagon. I can't wait to see it, and I can't wait to give you guys the results and the play-by-play on my Twitter. So tune in, guys. Check my Twitter out. Like the video. Tell me what you think. Put some comments in. Might even put some of y'all questions or y'all comments into my next video. So thanks, guys. I'm back doing it. I appreciate y'all. Have a good one. Enjoy the fights.